Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to yet another episode of Class Companion in the AP classroom. My name is Peter Paccone, and I'm a recently retired high school social studies teacher, put in close to 40 years, didn't quite make 40. And I'm also a consultant for Class Companion. Today, we're going to be hearing from AP Human Geo teacher Tori Hawes. Tori teaches just down the road from me, just a little bit. And she's here to not only describe how she's going and is using Class Companion in her AP Human Geo classroom, but she's also going to answer a bunch of questions. So before I turn this over to Tori, there's just two things that I want to do here. First of all, I want to describe Class Companion sort of in a nutshell, for those of you who are unfamiliar to the platform. Now, this is not the kind of webinar where we're going to break that down step by step. We're going to assume sort of a basic little bit of knowledge. And when I post the webinar, if that's not you, I will also include links to sort of the Class Companion 101 videos, sort of very, very basic. But what is Class Companion? And in simple terms, it is nothing more than an AI-driven platform. And what does a teacher do? They upload an assignment of some kind. They either create the assignment with AI, Class Companion AI, or they upload their own assignment, or they use an assignment that's found in the Class Companion content library. They then send that off to their students who respond. It could be a MCQ, an SAQ, LEQ, or a DBQ. Student responds. And the minute they submit, they get instant feedback, and so too does the teacher. That's essentially Class Companion in a nutshell, but then there are also about 20 or so really, really cool features. The other thing I want to do is, for the benefit of all of you, whether you're new to Class Companion or you've had some experience, I really want to encourage all of you to check out the Class Companion homepage. There's some great stuff up there. First and foremost, those beginner explainer videos, those basic videos, you can find them up there. They'll walk you through it step by step. There are also some slideshows up there that will do the same. There's a link to the Class Companion Help Center if you ever run into any kind of problems. I am so proud about Class Companion's willingness. I'd love to promote this. If I cannot imagine a platform out there that's more willing to respond to teachers and takes that part of it really, really seriously. There's also the link to the Class Companion Facebook group, and I, along with 3 others, we administer that page. So if you have any questions, or if you care to share, I think you'll find that be not only a very friendly, but also a very, very helpful place. So with all of that aside, let me introduce to you Tori Hawes. Let me bring her on here. She's sitting there for you. And Tori, nice of you to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Tori, we've had a conversation going for over a year right now. You know what a fan I am of AP Human Geo. I do have a little tutoring business, and I mean, I love teaching APUSH. I know you teach it as well. Mm-hmm. But my goodness, do I ever enjoy that AP Human Geo class, and I know you're a big fan of it. Start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then let's see if we can move that into telling us a little bit about your school, where you teach, that sort of thing.
Sure thing. So I've actually been working in classrooms since about 2016 when I got my teaching credential. However, I didn't get a full-time teaching job until 2022 in the history department. And that's actually at my school I'm at right now, LA High School. But even before I got hired at LA High, I was a substitute teacher. I proctored AP exams for my old high school as well, because that's one of the places I subbed at. I took a job up in the Bay Area and moved up there and was a college and career counseling teacher for a school up in the Bay Area. The pandemic actually is the only reason I finished that year. And then I came back down to Orange County, where I grew up. I was a special education instructional assistant for about 1.5 years with Irvine Unified. And then I got the call in January of 2022 that offered me a job at LA Senior High School, where I currently work in the magnet department, teaching. At the time, it was just AP US history, and Asian studies. And I love AP US history. I tell my kids all the time, AP US is my passion. But at the end of that year, when we were looking to try and figure out what class to bring on, I brought up the idea of AP Human Geography to my magnet coordinator with the idea that we could have it as a class for freshmen and then bring back AP World in the magnet department so that our students have the opportunity to take an AP history class all 4 years while they're in high school. My school is very high percentage of low socioeconomic students.
Mhm.
Most of my students are going to be first generation college students. Most of them are redesignated English language learners. So it's been a really interesting journey bringing this AP human geography to them because, as I tell them, AP Human Geography is just fun. You can see the applications everywhere you look. And we actually just started the urbanization unit today, Unit 6. I'm a little bit behind, but it was really cool to be able to use real life examples. And LA High is right in the center of Mid City, and we have a 3-story building. And when you walk around the 3rd floor, you can actually see downtown Los Angeles. You can see Century Cities downtown, and you can even see the Hollywood sign. So being able to use those examples for my students today was really cool because just telling them walk around and look, and some of them were like, wait, there's another downtown over there. And when they walked out, they got to see it. So that was really awesome today.
The multiple nuclei and all of that. Interesting.
Yep. Multiple nuclei model. I previewed that. I'm like, we'll talk about that later, but we're this kind of city structure.
Yeah. So you've got this completely different demographic than I'm used to, and teaching AP Human Geo. So of the three, the 4 different ways to use Class Companion, checking for understanding, multiple choice questions, and so on, LEQ, DBQ, and SAQ. What I'd like to do is just ask you here, right? Do you ever use it to just check for understanding as opposed to a SAQ kind of LEQ sort of thing?
I've started dabbling with that more. I mainly had been using Class Companion for FRQs, but when I got into the agriculture unit, I do this mini project with my students where they have to create a pamphlet on different types of agriculture, and each student gets a different pamphlet, and then they trade pamphlets, take notes in their notebook. And I wanted to do a quick check of, okay, how much did they understand of this? So I did actually use the Class Companion AI feature to create a multiple choice quiz for the students to just do a quick check of, okay, how much did they actually understand from this, and be able to see. So it was really cool to use that feature and see that it gave feedback even for students who got the questions wrong. It was a learning curve because I thought I set that the students could redo the quiz, and then afterwards the kids are telling me, oh, miss, it already submitted. I'm like, it is? And then I went and looked at features and it says only 1 submission for MCQs. I'm like, well, that's good to know. We're learning together, guys.
Can you take over the screen? Can you walk us through how you did that? So you gave them a project of some kind, and then you wanted to check to see their understanding of the content of the project was designed to get them to learn. And so if you and we'd be able to see.
So I created this.
Yeah, hold on. Let me bring it up.
Oh,
There you go.
sorry.
Okay, so you're in the room now. So what I was wondering, can we go back one? Is this a screenshot or is this?
Yeah, it's a screenshot.
Okay, so you're in your class, and let's just break this down. So you're in your class. You want to create this. So if you would click create an assignment, and then up would come 3 choices, right? You're one step ahead of the 3 choices here.
Yeah, I clicked on generate with AI, and
Okay.
it brought me to this. This is a screenshot, and the type, it's optional. I switched it to generic, but it usually has short answer or generic as the options for at least human geography. That's what I saw. So I wrote in the objective, create an 11 question MCQ. When I was playing with this, I realized sometimes it gave me very similar questions.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to end up being about a 7-question quiz. So I asked it to create more questions, and that way I could pare down the ones that I didn't want. Asking students about different types of agriculture. Questions should include market gardening, intensive versus extensive, Mediterranean, shifting cultivation, just naming out some of the pamphlets that the students did their work on. There were more pamphlets than this. We looked at all the different types of agriculture in the CED, and then I had it generate.
So to just back this out again, for the benefit of people who are new, attendees here who are new to Class Companion, you're in your class, your AP Human Geo, whatever, period 3, whatever. You go in Class Companion and you say, I want to create an assignment. Up comes 3 choices: create the assignment with AI, upload your own assignment, or select an assignment from the Class Companion content library. These are the 3 choices. You chose generate the assignment with AI, and this screen comes up and you plug this information in, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. And I'm assuming you're going to now show us another still shot of what the questions look like, or?
So here are a couple of the questions I just pulled up from one of the students to show you what it does if the student chooses incorrectly. So it doesn't just say you're wrong and that's it. I really like that Class Companion actually gives the reasoning why their choice is incorrect so that the students are learning further. So what distinguishes intensive from extensive? They just said intensive uses more labor that's the correct answer. They said intensive requires less labor, so they switched the 2 in their mind. So the feedback just saying it's not quite right. It's actually characterized by more labor, resources, and then trying to get them to think, how does intensive agriculture aim to get the most out of a limited area? So asking them another question to get them talking and sharing with each other, because all my students did the same quiz.
Tori, I want to make sure I understand. So you said give more questions than you actually sent off to the kids. The quality of the questions, what did you think about the quality of the questions?
Overall, a couple of them were repetitive. So I got a couple different versions of like what distinguishes intensive versus extensive agriculture, just worded differently, or the answer choices were different. But overall, like I said, I like having extra choices and being able to pare it down. And these were some of the ones, like some of the questions were about the climate, which I definitely wanted the students to think about. That was one of the things they had to include in their pamphlet. So like which type of agriculture is in hot, dry, humid, or hot, dry climates, or one of them was a question about Mediterranean agriculture, and it was what kind of plants specifically are tied more to Mediterranean agriculture. So that definitely was helpful for getting the kids using the information they had learned from the pamphlets and their notes.
Nice. Anything else you want to show us on this slide, or are you moving on to another one?
I'll move on to another one. Like I said, I use this more for free response questions. I've only just started dabbling with the multiple choice questions and playing with it. I know with the generate AI, I haven't yet figured out, and it may just be I haven't played with it enough, how to get it to provide a stimulus as well, which I know the students need to practice with. So that one I'll probably, when I do MCQs, actually create the stimulus myself with the questions. But go ahead.
Well, to just interrupt just for 1 second. So as the students were doing this, did you find them did the entire class seem to get into it, or was there full engagement?
For this one, yes. My students definitely grumble and groan when I tell them they're doing Class Companion, and part of that's because we're still working on building them knowing how to answer the questions enough. And so they grumble and groan, but I definitely have seen improvements in their writing because of it. This one, when I told them, okay, we're doing a class companion, and they started groaning at me, I'm like, hey, it's a different type, it's a multiple choice. And they definitely seem more excited about that than the free response question, just because they knew they didn't have to come up with the answers themselves.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. You can go to the next
No
one.
worries. So one of the things I've had trouble with in the past with Class Companion, and again, I'm starting to play with the features a little bit more. I use it more frequently in my APUSH class, but I'm trying to figure out how to make it work better for human geography, because I was seeing responses that the AI was granting that to me wouldn't have earned the point. So something like this, this was from today's lesson after we talked about 6.2, identify an example of a mega city in Europe was the question, and the student just responded Paris. And on AP Human Geography, the students need to write incomplete sentences. Yes, this question is an identify question, but if they just wrote Paris, as far as I know, I haven't done the reading for AP Human Geography, but I know the instructions say you need to write incomplete sentences, not bullet points. So it was getting frustrating that it would just agree and say, great job identifying Paris. And it didn't push them to, okay, no, you're just identifying, you need to have a complete sentence. So one of the features that I really appreciate that Class Companion has added in the recent months is additional scoring criteria on the question. So I'm able to add, my rubric for this is just the AP Human Geography FRQ, where it gave the point to just the word, but by adding the additional scoring criteria of Paris, and the student got the response that this submission needs to be in a complete sentence as per the assessment guidelines. So telling them basically, no, you're not getting full points with just one word.
Okay, nice.
And that actually, same thing with here, just an explain question. I've told my students needs to be about 4 to 5 sentences typically. You need to use vocab, define the vocabulary, give examples. So like this question, explain why suburbs have developed near the outskirts of cities. And the student just gave a response. They didn't really define anything. They didn't give enough information as far as I would have graded it. And again, Class Companions telling them, great job, this is the right answer. So I went back through and added scoring criteria of must contain a relevant example, must contain a definition of key terms. And now the question is being marked as incorrect. And Class Companion gave the feedback of you need to define the key terms like suburbs. So telling them you need to define this word specifically and provide a relevant example and giving a suggestion for that. So here is another example from a student, and the question scored incorrect initially, and then their rewrite actually did get the point afterwards, where they said a suburb can be defined as an outlying area of a city or town where homes are created. And then, for example, the suburb of Pasadena, California, serves as a place to allow commute to the larger city of Los Angeles. So with that extra little bit, the student did earn the full point.
So this was you making the adjustment. You're creating a rubric or using this new feature, just letting the Class Companions AI know real well what your expectation is.
Correct. And this has definitely been a game changer when this feature was added. I originally, when I started with Class Companion, I started pretty early on. I started using it August of last school year. So it was still pretty new, and all of the different features that have been added over time have been just making it better and better. This is one of the features I really appreciate. I always usually give my students 2 attempts to write their responses so that they always see feedback and get a rewrite. Earlier in the year, I give them 3 to 4 attempts, and then I parse it down over time. I've even added time limits sometimes to get the students writing faster, which is one of the times that they get the most mad, because then they don't feel that they have the time to do a rewrite.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this class, you are on a time limit when you're writing. So trying to get them to do that. And I have 5 classes of AP, 3 AP US and 2 AP Human Geography. It's about 160 students of writing that I just can't give great feedback to 160 students fast enough for them to grow. So one more example I have, and I have the additional scoring criteria I added at the bottom. So it was explained to what extent. So they earned the point with just it's to a high extent, and they just identified. And then I added this additional scoring criteria, include definitions, must include a claim, and must include specific examples. And then this was the rewrite afterwards, where they define the edge city and specifically say, because people travel into Hollywood during work hours, that's why it fits to a high extent.
Nice. Wow.
That's all I had.
All right. So let's see here. So did you view that those were SAQs, right? They went beyond, right? And in terms of accuracy, when the feedback now, how accurate are you finding it? Sounds like there's been improvement and it's working for you.
It's definitely been getting better. Like I said, before I had the ability to add additional criteria, the feedback for me wasn't always great for human geography, which is why I didn't use it as frequently for that class, because it was giving the point for just identify, and that's not how you get the point in this class on the FRQs. So making sure that we had the students getting those additional little details for describe or for compare, making sure that they talk about both sides, and having that additional scoring criteria has been an absolute game changer for the short answers on AP Human Geo.
Tori, the dispute button. You want to explain what the dispute button is? And then also, I'm just curious, do your students ever dispute? And then what happens in a class when that occurs?
So the dispute button is if a student thinks that they deserve a point when class companion didn't give it to them. My students don't tend to use it because they know I do actually go back through every single response and I double check it. And most of the time they don't want to hit dispute because they know sometimes I go back in and I look, I'm like, yeah, you didn't earn that point, and I take it away. And then they get really angry at me because they're like, well, class companion said it was okay. I'm like, yeah, well, Ms. Hawes says it's not. So the dispute button lets the student say, hey, I don't think that class companion awarded me this point when it should have. And there's a comment feature where the students can actually explain why they think they deserve the point. And you as the teacher can go back in and either override the score of class companion, give it a new score, or you can agree with class companion and write a comment back to them of, yeah, no, you actually got this wrong, so sorry. And one of the other newer features that I found that I absolutely love is the ability to add comments onto the students' responses. So one of my students today, she was doing a lot of identifying and she got the answer wrong multiple times and was getting frustrated. So I was able to go highlight specifically and say, this is where you need to add in this. And the student was able to see it and get that feedback a little bit easier than me just having to pull them aside and be like, hey, this is what you need to do. So being able to add that feature was really great to give feedback. I don't just use Class Companion in my AP classes. I also use it in my Mexican Studies class that I teach this year, and they're writing an essay, and it was a great feature for me to be able to give them feedback that way to improve their writing.
How many AP human geo teachers are there? Are you the only one at that school?
I'm the only one at my school. I brought the class to the school, and so I get it.
And your colleagues, I'm just curious, what are they saying? They're probably aware of you using this tool.
Yes.
Where are they with all of this?
My almost the entire history department has started using Class Companion. Really, it was my colleague in the magnet department. He was the one who first started using it. I had started getting the emails when it was first beta testing, and I just wasn't able to use that feature quite yet. I was still a brand new teacher and trying to figure things out. But over time, I started getting more into it, and most of my department does use it now. And I've even started getting some of the English teachers involved with it. One of my really good friends who's an English teacher, she actually has just started using it and has been reaching out to me. And she's like, have you noticed the kids writing like getting better fast? She's only been using it for about a month. And she was mentioning to me how the students who actually take it seriously, their writing has grown incredibly fast. And she was so excited for that. And also the SBAC practice questions that we're gearing up for that in 11th grade. So having those practice questions, she's all about it.
And parents, have you heard from any parents on this?
Not really, unfortunately, other than when we do parent conferences, I have my students do a write-up of their own of here's how many missing assignments I have. This is what I struggle with. And a lot of kids say they struggle with Class Companion. The parents look at me and they're like, what's that? Like, well, it's this really great AI program that I use to help support student writing because I can't grade their writing fast enough for them to get feedback. And the parents who I've spoken to about that have been really excited to hear about it. Like, oh, you're using AI, you're using it effectively. You're actually teaching the kids how to be smart about AI. And so they've been really excited about that.
I want to ask you a question, and maybe I'm curious if I asked you a big win as far as a particular student. Do you have a story like that? I have a couple. I have one about a teacher, but do you have one for a student?
For a student, not quite. Like I said, a lot of them grumble and groan about it. The new things I've been doing today have seemed to help a lot with the students realizing, hey, I'm not getting the point. Okay, what do I need to do? And actually reading the feedback, they're starting to see, oh, so that's why I didn't get the point on the FRQ. And so we're going back to that, especially because we're getting closer to the grind time. We're getting closer to needing to turn things to get ready for the test. I'm only going to finish about a week and a half before the AP exam. So giving them more assignments of the Class Companion. I usually use it as a warm-up. Usually I'll give them 1 or 2 questions of an FRQ for a warm-up, or I'll give them a couple for an exit ticket. So the one today was an exit ticket. Unfortunately, students at my school really don't do homework when it's assigned, as much as I would love to assign it more as homework.
Either, Tori.
It's also at home, I can't see them working as easily, and a lot of them are Googling the answer and then just copying and pasting it in. And so when they're in class, I can give them more feedback easier.
I'm tempted to ask you to take back the screen if you're comfortable, and let's do a live demonstration. But if that, I know sometimes that can be a little iffy. Are you okay with that?
Give me a second because I have to go to my school account for that. I'm on my personal email right now. Let me see if I can.
I'll tell a quick story while you're looking so we don't put pressure on you. But, I speak a lot at conferences on AI, and just this recently at California Social Studies Teachers Conference, I had a full room and a bunch of teachers up front. They weren't using AI, and they told me that up front. They were up front, and they told me that up front. But when it was all over, of all the things I talked about, and it wasn't focused entirely on Class Companion, they came up to me, and one in particular, he said that's what turned it for him. He said, I had no idea that this kind of thing was out there, and shook my hand, thanked me, and said this was something that he was going to do. And now that he'd actually seen it up close. But
Awesome.
just trying to buy you some time there. Do you want to try it, or is it putting too much pressure on you?
No, I have the screen share open. You have it working on your side?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, good.
Right.
So those are your classes, right?
Yes. I have
Great.
my AP Human Geography, my APUSH period, my Mexican Studies, and then I've been doing Saturday review sessions as well. Funny enough, none of my APUSH students are coming, but it's all AP World.
Wow.
So I've been creating assignments for them there.
Can we go into one of your classes and
Go to period 4.
So this is your class companion dashboard, and then let's scroll up to where it says assignments. Good.
So I like to organize them into folders. For me, it just helps keep things a little more organized, and I close assignments after 2 weeks from the unit. So we just finished our unit 5. You can see 92% of students completed it. Like I said, today was kind of an exit ticket, so only 15% have finished the practice so far. And a lot of students were out. So this student, for example, it tells me that she was pasting, but I overruled this class companion because she was only saying, so at first this student said some examples are Russia, France, and UK, and I verbally told her, Mary, think cities. So then she just put cities. So I'm like, no, you have to write a complete sentence. So she finally did that, and class companion marked it wrong because she kept another example, and it told her, just focus on one example, don't do that. Like, okay, I see where you were going. You just forgot to delete that. So I overruled it and gave her a correct answer there.
All right. So go back to the AI for a second to create an assignment.
That assignment.
Okay, now hold on right there just for 1 second. So you've had a couple questions come in, and we're gonna generate with AI and see how that looks. But the first question is, how often do you actually? Well, you're assigning this work formatively, correct?
Yes.
Do you ever do it summatively for a grade in the grade book?
Not on Class Companion. I know with Class Companion, you can withhold the feedback until you choose to release it. But with Class Companion, there's not really a lockdown screen. Yeah. So because of that, I have a different platform. My school uses Schoology for our LMS, and through that, we have a system called Performance Matters, and I can actually use a lockdown browser on that. I know AP Classroom also has a lockdown browser, but unfortunately, I've tried using AP Classroom for tests before, and it randomly will go down on the test day, of course.
Yeah.
That happened last year during my finals week, and since then, I will create my tests or I'll create assignments on AP Classroom, and then I will move them to a different platform that I have more control over, because I couldn't rely on AP Classroom to not crash on me on a day I needed it.
So mostly formative. So the question is, how often do you assign? I'm looking at the question here. How often do you assign these kind of FRQs through Class Companion, and is it primarily in class or homework? That was the first two questions.
Yeah. So like I said, it is primarily in class, but if the students don't complete it, then it becomes homework. I usually try and do this at minimum once a week. I only see my students 3 times a week. So it just varies. I have block schedule. Tuesdays, I only see them for 30 minutes. And then the other 2 days a week, I see them for an hour and a half. So with the hour and a half classes, it's a lot easier to use Class Companion and give up some time. But sometimes I'll just throw it up as a do now of go to Class Companion, answer these 2 FRQ prompts. Or as an exit ticket, like I did today of, all right, we've got about 15 minutes left, go to Class Companion and answer these 3 questions.
Got it. And then there's this other question. I'm not quite getting it. Maybe you can help me here. what does the export of the grade book look like in Class Companion? Are you?
I don't have that feature. I think that's something that is available for schools that do the licensing plan, if I recall correctly. So for me, I literally will just, I'll look at the grades and I'll write them down in my notebook, and then I'll move them over into Schoology that way.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to where we were. I want everybody to see how this looks live, and you're doing a great job. Thanks. I appreciate it. So generate with AI. Let's go there just for a second. And think of a topic you're going to teach next week or whatever. And I want to get to the ditto part and show everybody what that looks like. Also to give them an idea of how long it takes to generate these questions. Let's just do some MCQs. You take it wherever you want, but let's do some checking for understanding of some future topic.
Okay, so I do want a 15 MCQ to review city models, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, structure, something like that, internal structure. I think it's
questions about Hoyt sector, galactic city,
circles.
Why am I forgetting the Burgess model?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think once you do structure cities or whatever the topic, it's going to do just fine. I mean, you're elsewhere, but I understand.
Southeast Asia model and Africa.
Yeah, and the Africa model, sure.
Trying to get a few of them. For me, I like having a little bit more specificity.
Okay.
And then I click generate assignment.
All right. Did you do MCQs or did you, I missed that?
I did MCQ.
Okay. Trying to get your questions over here, and so my eyes go back and forth. If there's anybody else who'd like to ask a question, feel free.
All right. Great. And I think okay, so here we are. Which model is characterized by a series of concentric rings? Hoyt sector model, what primarily determines the shape and direction? What is also known as the peripheral model? The Burgess model often describes what area? This model includes a central business district. So that's kind of what I mean about sometimes it's the same question, just phrased differently. So instead of concentric rings, it's where was it? Surrounded by zones with different functions. So kind of similar. So I would probably get rid of one of those, which one has a market gardening zone, which includes the development of edge cities. In the Africa model, what's a feature? So the multiple CBDs, the port zone for Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So because of 15 questions, I can kind of get rid of the ones that are not helpful.
I interjecting here, but to me, they look. I mean, there was a couple sure there, but generally speaking, I'm pretty impressed. They look spot on, important to me. But again, I mean, I'll let you do it. Scroll to the top for a second, and where it says preview in student, preview as student. Let's go there, and go ahead and pick any one of them. Give it a correct answer. Let's do one with the wrong answer, correct answer. Let's see what that looks like.
So Burgess model. Okay, great job, which is indeed characterized by the concentric rings. And then it actually gives more information developed by sociologist Ernest Burgess to describe urban land use. Good. So Hoyt sector model, let's choose one that's wrong. So it tells you the correct answer, and then it gives us a reasoning, primarily shaped by government policies. While government zoning can influence, it emphasizes the role of transportation routes.
Now that we have seen that, if there's anybody who has a question and would like us to take that a step further, please don't hesitate to ask. But in the meantime, what is your experience with that little green iconish ditto feature there at the bottom?
So I usually turn on ditto for my students, especially because I have a high population of English learners. So sometimes they need the definition of a word. So like, well, we'll go up to this first question. So what does concentric mean? And giving that specific term of it refers to the shape that shares the same center. In the context of city models, it describes different areas or rings. So being able to say, oh, it's rings, that can help them answer it if they didn't know what that word was.
A tutor of sorts, and it's providing the students with a hint or a definition, right?
Yes, but if they try and get sneaky and ask what city model is most
When you would do that, yeah.
Because my students definitely like to try and just ask Ditto to answer the question for them. Help you find the answer. Consider what you know instead of telling them flat out, here's your answer.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that my students like to try and trick Ditto, but sometimes they also just have conversations with Ditto. I'll look and see because as teachers, you can actually see all of the questions that your student asks Ditto. And sometimes my students just start asking, what's your favorite music? How's your day going, Ditto? And it's just funny to see those kind of conversations. And every time Ditto's response is just, that's a good question, but let's get back to your assignment.
Tori, what about if you have a student who has come from another country, very little experience with the English language, would they be able to have Ditto translate the question and maybe even the answer choices into a foreign language? Is that?
I haven't tried that. I know there's a feature that you can turn on translation for students. So we can test it. And you write this in Spanish. I cannot provide specifics. So it didn't like that, but it might be if you turned on translation for that student, it would be possible.
Yeah. And then just philosophically, what would you think about that? Would you ever do that for a student or?
Yeah, I actually have turned on translation for one of my students. He is a proficient English speaker, but sometimes he needs a little bit of help. He speaks Korean, so I have turned on translation for him so that he can try and use that to help himself more.
Recently, it was said to me at a teacher conference that it is the teacher's responsibility to provide all feedback. They're definitely opposed to using it for grade, but they're opposed for all feedback. You don't agree with that position?
I don't, because I mean, I've heard plenty of times that students should be writing 4 times more than we can actually grade. And with 160 students, I just don't have that time to be able to grade that much and give detailed feedback to the students. So using this tool has been a lifesaver for me, or at least a time saver, because I'm not sitting there giving detailed feedback to every student, and I'm double checking what feedback Ditto does give or Class Companion does give. My friend that I mentioned earlier, who's an English teacher who only recently started using Class Companion, she's been using it, having her rubrics and for essays and having students submit their first draft on Class Companion. And she's going back double checking, but it has saved her so much time because she's able to just trust it a little bit more to give some feedback, and then she can agree or disagree, versus she's having to sit there and go through all of her students' writing. And she has probably closer to 200 students compared to my 160 because she's not a magnet teacher. So her class sizes are 40 students.
Wow, that's big. That's a big class. Tori, the content library, do you ever assign document, or do you ever sign out of the content library? That's the one. Mhm. Yeah.
I definitely do. Sometimes I'll go in there to try and find assignments first, and then I'll make adjustments. They
Show us,
have a
show
lot
us how
from
that would work for something coming up. Show us
all
how that.
right, let's see. Defining sustainable cities. So I don't always use the AP Success ones because a lot of times it's just define, or describe. So I don't feel that helps as much give a support to the student. So I usually turn off the creator and see what's coming. So let's see.
So you're looking, what, just to make clear here, so teachers themselves can create assignments and then share publicly, and Class Companion create with their team assignments, and that's called the creator, and you can choose how to filter for that. Is that right?
Yeah, and sometimes you'll still get the same question. So define infrastructure. This is the same question as I was just looking at. But trying to find one. Let's go a little bit further so we're past all the AP successes. Here we go. All right. A Malthusian theory, FRQ. Let's look at it.
Yeah.
So define overpopulation, explain, describe, describe, and explain. So this one, this person, Amanda Phillips, created it. They allowed the AI tutor, they allowed maximum attendance, and you can choose to add to your class and then make adjustments to it as well so that it fits more what you want. So let me try, and you can filter by unit. So I've got unit 6, topic. Let's do infrastructure. See if we can find one that helps with that. Look for that word. AP Success again. So it's the same one I keep pulling up by accident. But you can try and find different ways, and you can even, if you don't like what it's showing, you can make adjustments to it when you add it to your library and change what you need it to be. Let's try it.
Nice.
Von Tunen. In Von Tunen, we trust. Let's see if we can find something for Von Tunen. So define the isolated state, describe the 4 zones. So let's say I don't like this question. I can click add to class. It'll first just give you one period. And then you can go through and fix what you need to and change any questions you want to as well. It's not wanting to show me that one apparently.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's the MCQ.
Good. And so, how do you find the quality of the questions in the content library?
The ones that are created by other teachers, I think, are really great, and I definitely use that a lot. The ones that are AP Success don't always have everything I'm looking for. So those ones I do tend to stray away from a little bit more because I'm trying to make sure I'm closer to what the AP exam is. And those ones also don't always give like stimulus that the students have to respond to. Let me see if I can try one with a stimulus and maybe that'll give me what I need. Image. Let's try this one. So with an actual stimulus here, describe the spatial pattern, explain one. So this one, yeah, I'll try this one and add to class. Let's see if it wants to work this time. There we go. So it says this template's created by someone else, clone, then edit, and then you can actually make those changes yourself.
Seeing what you just showed there, I have a really tough question for you, okay? What is your understanding? It just came up yesterday. So College Board releases exams. The exams have stimuli in them.
Yes.
If you screenshotted those stimuli and then drag them into Class Companion in the create or generate assignment with AI mode, it would read the stimulus. It can do that. It's screenshots, PDF. It can do that. What's your understanding of whether or not that violates any kind of College Board rule? Is it protect?
I don't know, so I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on it because I don't know.
Yeah.
I tend to not screenshot the stimulus into a website like this for that purpose.
Yeah. Good. Just curious about that. It came up just yesterday and seemed to really split a room in which I was presenting. Half of them said it's public. And the other half said, but you're feeding the AI copyrighted material. And I didn't know the answer. So
yeah, I don't know the answer. Like I said, I don't typically do that in a system like this. If I was copying a question that was already done and just building from scratch, where I wouldn't have the AI, so creating from scratch and then adding it there and adding the questions in myself, I might be more willing to do that, but I wouldn't make it a public question. I'd just keep it a private question for my students.
Nice. Is there a feature you'd like to see added? We're getting close to the end of our hour. I'm definitely not going to keep you over, but is there a feature that you'd like to see added?
Just more finessing on the FRQ, I think, on the rubric for it would be the biggest thing I'd want, just so that I don't have to go through and, okay, we need to add this, and then just continuing to flip back and forth with that. Okay, preview, nope, that's not what I want. And then doing that, that would kind of be the biggest thing of being able to add extra directions into a rubric, not question by question. Got
it. I'm looking through it. Any questions that I put together a list of questions that I wanted to ask you, and I'm not seeing anything here. Yeah, looks like we've got the learning curve, I guess, is what I wanted to ask. What was the learning curve like for Class Companion?
I mean, it's really easy to figure out. It's very user friendly, and the biggest thing is that it does keep getting updated and different things keep getting added. One of the other features, it's not as helpful for FRQs, but for my APUSH students that use, when I have them write essays, it specifically will underline, well, here's where you got the point for the thesis statement. Here's where you got the point for contextualization. And that was a feature that I absolutely loved. Like I said, for FRQs, it's not as helpful, but for essays, it's super great.
Anything else you'd like to add on all of this?
No, I guess I love seeing what Class Companion has become. I share it with my coworkers. I've slowly been introducing it more and more. I actually did a PD for my school last week on AI in the classroom, and the Spanish teacher got really interested in Class Companion. So I think she's going to start using it as well because she has AP Spanish language. So she was really excited about this and saying, oh, can we actually use this more? And it's great that it's on Clever for my school district. So that means it's at least approved. And I was very excited when that happened too.
Very nice. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, coming in here. And I think we're good. I've got nothing else. And I want to wish you the best of as we go down the backstretch. When's your spring break?
Not soon enough. April 10th through 14th.
Okay.
I come back and have 3 weeks for AP tests.
Yeah. I'm on that. There are a couple of AP Human Geo Facebook groups, and I think the vast majority of teachers are right there where you are, right around 6. So starting 6 is what you said, right?
Yeah, we did 6.1 today, and I usually like to do the urban game, and I don't have time for it this year, unfortunately. I love doing that with the students and I tell them at the start of it, I'm like, you guys are all going to hate me today. They're like, no, we're not. And then at the end of the day, they're like, we hate you.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. You can never trust them one way or the other. Tori, my very best to you. Thank you again to all of you who attended tonight. Hope you found real value. I certainly did. And wish you all the best for the rest of the year. Have a good night and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Bye-bye all.